Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I will continue bringing you the next part of the story about Tieu San and CEO Hai, a familiar story that many viewers have been following for quite some time. Whenever people mention Tieu San and CEO Hai, many viewers feel a sense of closeness, as if they are witnessing the everyday moments of people they know. Their life may not be noisy or dramatic, but it is filled with simple and genuine emotions. One early morning, when thin layers of mist were still drifting across the lush green hills of the highlands, the surrounding space seemed to remain wrapped in the gentle quietness of dawn. Tiny drops of dew rested on the leaves, sparkling softly under the light of the sun that had just begun to rise from behind the distant mountains. In front of the small house located in the middle of the garden, Tieu San gently held baby Ivy in her arms. Her face carried a peaceful and gentle expression as she looked out at the beautiful scenery in front of her. She smiled softly and said in a warm and gentle voice, "Tieu San and Ivy pray that God will bless everyone." Those words were very simple, yet in the peaceful atmosphere of the early morning in the highlands, they brought a feeling of warmth and kindness. For Tieu San, it was not only a familiar greeting, but also a sincere blessing she wished to send to everyone who was following the story of her and her family. The air in the highlands that day felt especially fresh and pure. Light breezes gently swept across the fields, carrying with them the scent of soil, grass, and nature after a long night. Anyone standing in that scenery could easily feel a refreshing sensation spreading through their body, as if all the worries of life had temporarily faded away. When the car stopped on the small dirt road leading up to the farm, Tieu San stepped out first. She paused for a moment and took a deep breath, as if trying to fully enjoy the cool and fresh air of the highland morning. Then she turned to Hai, her eyes sparkling with joy, and said, "The air up here is so fresh, isn't it? It feels like we're walking on a prairie." Hai, standing beside her, nodded in agreement. He looked around at the scenery in front of them, rows of green crops stretching across the hillside, the soil rich and soft. Everything created a scene that was both simple and full of life. Today they came here for a familiar task, harvesting potatoes. This was one of the main crops grown in this garden. The potato field stretched out before them, the plants lush and full, their leaves spreading across the ground, signaling a promising harvest season. Tieu San looked at the rows of potatoes with excitement. Turning to Hai, she said cheerfully, "Since you brought me up here today, let's harvest a lot so we can load them into the car." Hai simply smiled. For him, days spent at the farm like this were not just about work. They were also a relaxing experience, a chance to step away from the busy routines of everyday life. The two of them began walking along the potato rows. Tieu San bent down and carefully dug around one of the plants. As the soft soil was pushed aside, she suddenly exclaimed in surprise, "Hai, have you ever pulled potatoes before? There are so many here." Beneath the loose soil, golden potatoes gradually appeared. Some were large and round, while others were smaller, clustered together around the roots. Seeing the fresh and firm potatoes made Tieu San visibly excited. She picked up a particularly large potato and showed it to Hai with enthusiasm. "Look at this one. Isn't it big? It looks delicious." Hai looked at the potato in her hand and laughed. It was surprising that such a small plant could produce so many potatoes. Tieu San continued digging up several more plants. Each time she lifted the soil, more golden potatoes appeared beneath the ground. While working, she said, "Wow, there are so many here. One row like this could probably fill several baskets." She carefully picked up each potato, gently brushing off the soil before placing it into the large basket beside her. The soil in this garden was quite soft, which made harvesting much easier. However, sometimes the largest potatoes were buried deep beneath thick layers of soil. If she pulled too hard, the plant stems would break, so Tieu San had to carefully dig around them with her hands. While working, she laughed and said, "The big ones are heavy, so if I pull too hard the stems break. I have to dig them out slowly." Just like that, the harvesting continued in a cheerful atmosphere. After a short while, the basket beside them began to fill up. They even counted the potatoes from one of the plants they had just pulled out, and the result surprised both of them. "More than 10 potatoes already," Tieu San said. "And there are still many small ones too." From time to time, she would find an especially large potato with a beautiful golden skin. Holding one up, she said happily, This one would be perfect for cooking pork rib soup. Hai laughed again. In the wide-open garden, their voices and laughter blended with the gentle sound of the wind and the rustling leaves, creating an incredibly pleasant atmosphere. They worked while chatting, and time passed quickly without them noticing. When they finally paused to look at their baskets, they realized they had harvested quite a large amount of potatoes. After nearly a whole morning of work, the baskets were full. When they brought them to be weighed, the total surprised both of them. The man weighing the potatoes looked at the scale and said, 24.5 kilograms. After subtracting the basket, it's still more than 22.5 kilograms. Hearing that number, Tieu San smiled brightly. For her, the results of a morning of hard work like this brought real joy and satisfaction. It was not only about the amount of potatoes they had harvested, but also about the feeling of working with her own hands in the middle of nature, breathing in the fresh mountain air, and sharing meaningful yet simple moments together. While Tieu San and CEO Hai were still happily harvesting baskets of golden potatoes in the lush green garden on the highlands, enjoying the fresh air and the simple yet joyful moments of working together. In another place, a completely different story was unfolding. There was no laughter there, no peaceful morning scenery, only worry and confusion slowly filling the atmosphere. In front of a small house hidden deep inside a quiet alley, a woman stood silently before a tightly locked iron gate. The gate looked cold and lifeless, as if no one had come in or out for a long time. The woman stood there with a tense expression. Her eyes kept staring at the gate, then looking around the surroundings, as if hoping that someone might suddenly appear. She raised her hand and knocked hard on the gate, calling out loudly, "Mrs. Yan! Mrs. Yan!" Her voice echoed through the quiet alley, but the only response was a long silence. There were no footsteps, no sound of a door opening, and no sign that anyone was still inside the house. The gate remained closed and unmoving. The woman began to feel restless. She knocked again, this time even harder, as if trying to make sure that if anyone was inside, they would definitely hear her. But nothing changed. No one answered. The surrounding space remained so quiet that it made her feel increasingly uneasy. The worry in her heart began to grow little by little. Finally, she turned to the nearby neighbors, hoping someone could give her an explanation. She walked toward a person standing in front of a neighboring house and asked hurriedly, "Excuse me, do you know where Mrs. Yen went?" The neighbor looked at her for a moment, then shook his head. "She moved away a long time ago. No one knows where she went." That answer struck the woman like a heavy blow. Her face immediately turned pale, and her eyes widened in shock. She moved away?" she stammered, as if unable to believe what she had just heard. But the neighbor simply shrugged. "Yes, she left a long time ago. Haven't seen her come back since." Just those few short sentences were enough to shatter the hope she had carried with her when she came here. She stood silently in front of the locked house for a few seconds before slowly collapsing onto the roadside. Her voice trembled in despair. "Oh my God, my money, hundreds of millions." It turned out that in the past, because she trusted Mrs. Yen, she had lent her a very large amount of money. That money was not a small sum for her. It was the savings she had accumulated over a long period of time, and some of it was even connected to loans she herself had borrowed. And now, the person who had borrowed the money had suddenly moved away without leaving any information. No message, no new address, no way to contact her. Everything seemed to have vanished without a trace. The woman sat beside the road, holding her head in her hands. Tears began to fall as she thought about the money she had lent and the debts waiting ahead of her. She cried while speaking in despair. "How am I supposed to find the money to repay people now? The interest is already due." The worries piled up in her mind until she felt as if everything was collapsing in front of her. Numbers about money kept spinning inside her thoughts. The amount she had lent out, the interest she had to pay, and the daily expenses she still had to manage. Just thinking about it made her feel suffocated. After leaving the alley, she returned home with a heavy heart. The road back seemed longer than usual. In her mind, the neighbor's words kept repeating again and again. She moved away a long time ago. Every time she remembered it, her heart tightened with anxiety. When she finally arrived home, her son had just returned from outside. Completely opposite to his mother's mood, he looked very excited. As soon as he stepped into the house, he said enthusiastically. "Mom, I found a new car." His voice was full of excitement. He took out his phone and showed her pictures of a new model car he had just discovered. "This one is really nice, Mom. They're selling it with installment payments. I think it would be perfect for driving passengers." He continued talking while pointing at the phone screen, explaining every detail about the car. But his mother sat silently. Her eyes looked at the screen, but her mind was somewhere else entirely. In her thoughts, there was no image of the new car, only numbers spinning endlessly. Debts, interest payments, and the large amount of money she had lent out that now seemed impossible to recover. The son kept talking with hope in his voice, but the mother barely had the strength to listen. After a while, he went down to the kitchen and cooked 2 bowls of instant noodles for both of them. In the small kitchen, the sound of boiling water and the gas stove quietly filled the room. Meanwhile, the mother lay on the old bed in her room, staring up at the ceiling while her mind remained tangled with worries. Thoughts about the future made it impossible for her to calm down. Buying a car on installments, and the interest payments too. Where will the money come from? She sighed softly. That sigh carried countless worries and a deep sense of helplessness. Inside the small house, the atmosphere suddenly felt heavy and oppressive. The mother lay there with a heart full of anxiety as she thought about the difficulties waiting ahead. At that moment, the future seemed uncertain and unclear, as debts and life's burdens continued pressing heavily on her already exhausted shoulders. On the other side of the hill, where the rows of lush green potato plants still stretch along the fertile slopes, Tieu San and CEO Hai were continuing to gather the last sacks of potatoes after a hard-working morning. The midday sunlight had begun to shine gently across the garden, making the freshly turned soil appear brighter. The air remained cool and pleasant, carrying with it the familiar scent of fresh earth and mountain plants. The sacks of potatoes had been tied neatly and placed beside the car parked along the small path leading out of the garden. Tieu San brushed the remaining soil off her hands before helping Hai lift each sack onto the back of the vehicle. Every sack represented the result of their steady effort since early morning, from the moment when the hills were still covered in mist until the sun slowly rose higher in the sky. When the last sack had finally been placed on the truck, both of them paused for a moment and looked at the results of their work. The sacks were lined up neatly behind the car, full and heavy, like quiet proof of a productive morning. Tieu San looked at them and smiled softly, her eyes reflecting a simple but genuine sense of satisfaction. Hai stood beside her, also looking at the freshly harvested potatoes before turning his gaze toward Tieu San. Neither of them needed to say much. Just a brief glance was enough for both of them to understand that they shared the same quiet happiness about what they had accomplished that morning. Then the two of them laughed naturally. Their laughter echoed softly through the peaceful farm, blending with the gentle wind moving across the distant fields. It was not a loud or overwhelming joy, but rather the simple happiness that comes after finishing a small but meaningful task. It was just an ordinary working day, yet for them it carried a feeling that was deeply worth appreciating. Perhaps it is moments like these that make life feel more real and meaningful. Joy does not always come from big achievements. Sometimes it comes from something much simpler. A morning spent working together, a few light-hearted conversations while harvesting, or a quiet smile when looking back at the results of one's own effort. While Tieu San and CEO Hai were enjoying that simple happiness, life around them continued with many different stories unfolding. Some people were living through peaceful days, while others were still struggling with the worries and burdens of life. There are concerns that outsiders cannot easily see, burdens that each person must carry on their own shoulders. Every person has their own story, their own journey filled with different challenges. And perhaps that is exactly why simple days like this become even more precious. Moments when people can pause for a while, look around at the small things in life, and realize that there are still many good and beautiful things worth appreciating. Tieu San stood beside the car, looking out toward the distant fields stretching beneath the soft sunlight. The wind continued to blow gently across the hills, bringing with it the familiar peace of the highland countryside. Beside her, Hai carefully checked the sacks of potatoes in the car, making sure everything was secure before they prepared to head home. Everything happened in a very natural and ordinary way, and perhaps it is precisely these simple moments that create the stories that make people feel close and warm when following the journey of Tieu San, Little Ivy, and the people around them. If you enjoy this story, Please subscribe to the channel and press like on the video to support me. Your support is a great motivation for me to continue sharing more meaningful stories in future videos. And the journey of Tieu San, Little Ivy, and the people who appear in their lives is far from over. Ahead of them, many new experiences and unexpected moments are still waiting. Their story continues with new developments that will gradually be revealed in the next chapters.
Tính ra là mình có thể làm video này xong từ khá là lâu rồi, nhưng mà do tinh thần không có lên là mình thôi để hỏi không biết. Mình thì mình thường đọc sách là mình cũng biết là nguồn cảm hứng thì có thể giúp chúng ta làm việc kiểu giống như theo ngẫu hứng, có khi sẽ rất hiệu quả nhưng mà có khi nó sẽ không làm được gì cả. Còn kỷ luật thì sẽ đưa ta đến đích, nhưng mà mình chưa thực hiện được điều đó. Chắc là do công việc và cuộc sống của mình ở chủ yếu một mình, và công việc của mình tự do nên là mình không thể sắp xếp được cái công việc một cách hợp lý. Thật là buồn quá. Cảm ơn mọi người đã xem video. Tạm biệt mọi người.